Well, hello my little beauties and welcome back. This video is going to be about how to improve page load speed, okay? Before we start, would it be okay if I made a little quick correction very quickly from the last video? If I could ask you to open up the inquiries controller, if that's cool, and go to fetch customers as options. Now there's actually a little mistake in here. Can you see what the mistake is? Yes, that's right, it's line 70. This line has a mistake, and the mistake is that if you set up an array and you use square brackets and you leave the thing empty, well, what does PHP do? Yes, that's right, it assumes that there's going to be a key of 0. It does that, you see. Now if someone submits the thing and they have select customer, we want this to be like empty, like that. Can you handle the vibe? We don't want to submit a value of 0. So the fix is, if you could find that line of code here with those square brackets and just add in a couple of single quotes, then that would be fantasticola. Okay, so that's the little fix out of the way. Thank you very much. And now let us begin the lesson. Okay, I'm going to start this one with a little PHP timeout, if that's cool. And I'd like you to make up a function called test, and we're going to set up a couple of variables. Let's have a first name. You can add anything you want, and you can even add your own name. Let's have a last name as well, okay? And then we're going to do this load up say my name, and we're going to pass in first name, okay? Now underneath this, I'd like you to make up a function called say my name. It's going to take in first name and last name, and it's going to say hello, first name, last name. That's the vibe, okay? Thank you very much indeed, thank you very much indeed. Now what do you think is going to happen when we go to inquiries /test, okay? Yes, we're going to get an error message because this thing is expecting first name and last name. We only passed in last name. Now if we had passed in the last name, then of course it's all smiles and sunshine, but we did not do that. We just passed in the first name. Now what do you think is going to happen if we go like this? If not is set last name, then echo we do not have a last name variable set, okay? Else echo the last name is last name. Okay, what do you think is going to happen when we run this? Shall we give it a try? Well, let's see. If we hit refresh, then as you can see, we still get an error message. I mean, of course, it kind of bungles through an echo statement at the bottom of the thing, but look at all this grief and all of this hassle. The vibe could not be more clear. This function, say my name, is expecting a first name and a last name, and if we do not give it a last name, then it's going to freak out. That's the vibe, okay? Now, the cool thing is with PHP, you can actually do some things that can alleviate those kinds of problems. For example, we can say last name equals Smith, okay? And I'll take this out for the moment, and I'm just going to say hello, first name, last name. And now if we refresh the screen, it says hello David Smith. So the vibe is, it's hoping that, well, maybe it is, who knows? Maybe functions have emotions. Has that ever occurred to you? Anyway, the function is expecting a last name. It's hoping for a last name. Anyway, it's expecting this last name, but if a last name does not come in, then it's going to assume that the last name is Smith, okay? So if we pass in the last name, it's going to say hello David Connolly. And if we don't pass in the last name, it's just going to assume that the last name is Smith, and it's going to say, hello, David Smith. That's the vibe, and it's all pretty simple. But you know, there's something else that we can do with this little feature here. We can do something like this and say last name, last name is null, right? And if we reintroduce that little equation that we had a moment ago, remember the one that caused the error? Well, check it out. Now if we refresh the screen, it just says we do not have a last name variable set, okay? No more freaking out. No more error messages. You know, the vibe is we're saying, okay, if we have a last name, then that'll be kind of nice. But if not, then no need to freak out. Just say we don't have a last name variable set, okay? And just for the purposes of being complete, you'll see that it behaves fantastically, okay? Now, most of you folks are watching this and thinking, man, that's really easy, and you probably already know this, and it's really trivial. Well, maybe so, but actually, I think some of the coolest stuff out there is trivial and easy. You know, some of the nicest features that you'll ever build will be simple, you know, and we can actually use this to do some pretty cool stuff. So let's get started. I would like you to go to inquiries/inbox, okay? And you should have a page that looks like this, right? With loads of messages and stuff, and you can click in and view the messages, and the envelopes change colour, and everything is cool, and it's all fantastic. What? Hang on a second. Are you telling me that you don't have this? You don't have... Oh, well, I'm terribly sorry. Maybe you don't have time to write 1,000 inquiries like me. Yes, indeed. I've actually added a whole bunch of stuff. Look, over 1,000 of them, and I've even got 50 customer accounts that I set up. It's fantastic, and it's really good for testing this stuff. So here's the vibe. If you would like to have 1,000 inquiries and a whole bunch of customers so that you can set things up and look around and test stuff, then here's what to do. Head over to the Insider Club and I'll give you the SQL code, okay? So just head to the Insider Club, find the lesson, there'll be a button there with a link. You can download the SQL code. You'll be able to, you know, use this in PHPMyAdmin, and you too can have tons of glorious data. So go on over to the Insider Club, enjoy the free data, and I'll see you in a minute. Welcome back. Did you manage to get the free SQL data from the Insider Club? Did you manage to set it up okay? So you should now have a fairly busy inquiries folder and also quite a lot of stuff in store accounts as well, okay? Okay, cool. So now you should have a page truly that looks something like this, okay? And the vibe for the rest of this lesson is we're going to figure out a way to make this page load quicker and just a bit more gracefully. Now let me tell you folks that making pages load quick is something that's really in demand. You know, my friend Derek McLean, he's over in Belgium just now doing work for, it's one of the big mobile companies. I cannot remember if it's Orange or Vodafone. It's one of them. But huge company, and they have some internal system that uses PHP, and they had a page, listen to this, they had a page that was taking 90 seconds to load. They called in Derek. He now has the page going like a bullet, you see. And I was talking to him on Skype the other day, and he had his phone with the camera and all of that, and he was out there in the sunshine drinking those nice little coffees. He is having the time of his life, and I don't think he would object to me telling you that he's actually being paid very well, and it's all to do with page load speed. So if you can actually figure out ways to make pages load quickly, then believe me, you will be very much in demand as a web developer. Anyway, end of introduction. Let's do some cool stuff. when it comes to making pages load quickly, and if you're using Codeigniter, you really want to be using the profiler, okay? The output profiler. So at the top of inbox, I want you to say this, load up, output, load up, enable underscore profiler, and then in brackets, I want you to just say true, okay? One line of code, folks. That's the vibe. Thank you very much indeed. Now, if we refresh the page, you'll find that the page loads up as normal. Everything looks kind of as you would expect. But if you scroll away down to the bottom here, you'll see that we have some benchmarks, okay? And in this case, the key variable to look at is the total execution time, right? So the total execution time for this page is just over half a second, 0.51. Do you see that there? Okay. And when we scroll down here, it becomes apparent very quickly and obviously why the page is taking half a second. Look, we have 1,003 queries going on to load this page up. And if we click on show, it's actually going to show us all the queries that were fired to make this page load. And as you can see, we've got hundreds and hundreds of lines of select all from store accounts, okay? So that's why the page is taking half a second, and that's the vibe. Now let me just say, by the way, I actually think that that's pretty good going. I mean, you may be faster, you may be a bit slower, right? Who knows? But to be able to load a page up with all this stuff, all of the if statements, all of the formatting, over 1,000 queries, and it's doing it in what, half a second? That is awesome. What a powerful and awesome framework we are using. What a gloriously fast technology PHP is. And the new version of PHP that's came out is an absolute bullet. Ruby, Python, forget about it. Those characters are left behind in the slow lane. And if anyone ever tells you that Codeigniter is slow, or PHP is slow, or HMVC is slow, then you take them to this video and show them this, because I think that's actually pretty incredible. But in any event, we can do even better. So let's do that. If we have a look at inquiries, and then we have a look at the file called view inquiries, right? The view file, you'll see that there's a query here, store accounts get customer name, okay? That's the query that's doing all of the damage. That's what's causing the page to take half a second, okay? Now, we can solve that, because if we go to inquiries inbox, you'll see that it's firing fetch inquiries, right? Fetch inquiries, select all from inquiries, blah, 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 blah. And the vibe is, as we loop through the results, it's querying store accounts and figuring out the customer name, okay? That's what's taking up all the time there. So we can do a table join. Now I'm going to just bring up the query builder here. I'm in Navicat, and I'm going to drag this across here, and I'm going to link up with store accounts, and sent by is going to link to store accounts ID. And I'm going to be selecting some stuff from inquiries, but I would also like first name, last name, and company from store accounts. And I'm going to do a where statement, okay? If you look at the original query, you'll see it says where sent to equals 0. So I'm going to say where inquiries dot sent underscore to equals 0. And if we have a look, you can see that it's building up a nice query here. Everything's looking kind of cool. And I'm just going to do a couple of tweaks. We don't want just the ID. We want everything. So the vibe is inquiries dot all, or sorry, dot star, right? The star means all, okay? And finally, we've got an order by date created descending. So I'm going to add that in as well. And just for the purposes of clarity, I'll say order by inquiries dot date created descending. Okay, so that's our query, and if we run this here, just test it, everything is fantasticola. Now listen, if you're watching this part of the video and you're thinking, man, well, this is nice, but I haven't got Navicat, and you know, I don't feel comfortable with joins, and you know, I maybe you're not into this, or Navicat's too expensive or something, then you need to head to the Insider Club discussion forum. Right now, there is a discussion going on in the forum, and all the regulars are there, you know, Johnny, Phil, people who, Glenn, people who know more than me, and they're giving recommendations. Those sons of a guns are finding alternative software packages, one of which actually is free of charge. And so if you're interested in that kind of thing, if you'd like those kind of recommendations, then my recommendation is to head to the Insider Club discussion forum. As for me, I'm just doing a video, you know. So I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to head into fetch inquiries, and I'm going to change the MySQL query to this one here. Okay, so we can say adios to this old one, and we now have this awesome new one. So what does that actually mean? Well, if we go up where this loop's happening in the view file, now we have a whole bunch of information. We can now say that first name is row first name. We can now say that last name is row last name, and we can now say that company is row company. Yes, it's very cool indeed. And this is where things get much faster, because in here, instead of querying store accounts, we can just say sent by equals first name and then space out and then last name. Let's pretend we never saw that. So we can now clarify that. We don't need to do another query and everything's fine. So if we load up this page now, right, here we go. Everything is just fine. Everything looks good. And if we scroll down, you'll see that the total execution time here is down to 0.07 of a second. And now, instead of doing thousands of queries, we are only doing 3 queries. Look, see, it's very cool indeed. So that's nice, and that has things going very quick. But you know, I don't think we should crack open the champagne just yet. Not just yet, because actually, when you have a look at store accounts and you have a look at that get customer name, it's kind of a cool function, you know. I like the way that it takes the company name on board, you know. I like the way that it trims the data here. We could even go further. We could say something like uppercase first. I mean, let's face it, tons of people don't write their names in uppercase, right? So we could do that. So we've got a really nice, cool function here. I like this function. And isn't it a shame that we had to sacrifice this very nice function so that we could get the page loading quicker? Well, the good news is, yes, you've figured it out. Yes, congratulations. See, you know what's going to happen. That's right. Thanks to the glorious, I'll get rid of the margin, thanks to the technique that we were going over right at the start, we can still use this function, okay? So if we go up here and we've got first name, last name, company, we can say something like customer data, right? I'm making up an array here. Can you handle the vibe? Making up an array. And we can do something like that. And then we can pass in the customer data like so. And this is where it gets really cool, because if we head to store accounts, right, we can now add in one of those nice variable things, and we'll call this one optional customer data, right, just so that you know that it's optional, and I'll assume it to be null, so it's probably not going to be passed in, you know, no big deal, right? But check this out, we can say if not is set optional customer data, then and only then we're going to do the query, okay? Otherwise, this is where it gets very cool. Now we can say data first name equals optional customer data first name, and then we can do the same for the other two variables, okay? So we can go last name like so, and we can go company like so. So check this out. Now we can actually enjoy all of the full glory of this little function without slowing the page down with tons and tons of database queries. It's the coolest vibe ever. So now if we, let me just, did I actually add that in? Yes, it all looks cool. And now if we refresh the page, you will see that everything looks fantastic. And the execution time is still at 0.05 of a second here, so it's still incredibly fast, okay? We're still doing only a few queries, but now we have our glorious, fantastic get customer name function still in full formation. It's the coolest thing ever. And just to prove that this is actually being called, because some of you might be looking and saying, did that really happen? I mean, did all of that cool stuff really happen in 0.05 of a second? I'll change the customer name to Elvis here, right? And if I save that and refresh, you'll see that the answer is yes. It is true. It is true. It is being called, and it is that awesome. So, thank you very much indeed. Now, just before I end this video, I'm going to say that I was originally planning on doing that pagination. I was going to do that at the top of this thing here. But this video has gone on longer than I would have expected, and really you don't want to be watching a video of me for 10 minutes doing something that you already know, right? So obviously if this was a live site we would do that, but I'm going to just move on. I do not want to make this video any longer than it already is. So stay cool, and I'll see you in the next video.